if we are to die now, what's the value in it? What's the value of this death? And so now through that lens, I'm judging what's the value of how this potential World War III is starting? What's the value here?
Welcome to Lucas Skrobot Show. I'm Lucas Skrobot, and this is where we uncover purpose, pursue truth, and own the future. Episode 274. We are recording on March 16th, 2022. And the only thing that anyone has been talking about, I guess if you're a U.S. American pundit, you're going to be talking about ridiculous U.S. American politics. But the only thing that the world is really focused on is the beginnings of World War III. And so we have the world's most leading geopolitical expert on the show today, Mike Nova. Mikhail, welcome to the show.
Thank you, brother. It's good to be alive.
I just have to say, I for those of you who are listening and can't see, Mike is wearing a shirt filled with flags, and that's how I know that he is the world's foremost leading geopolitical Slavic Eastern European expert. Actually, to be truthful, we're taking all that geopolitical garbage and we're shoving it in the trash today, aren't we, Mike?
Yes, yeah. Or as some say, outside of the Christian world, up Putin's bum.
We can't say that on that show. This is a kids-friendly show.
I'm not saying that I'm saying that. I was just saying that if I was to say it.
Yes, if you were to say it. Well, okay. So,
Yeah.
so the reason that we're gonna cue this up here, the reason that Mike is on the show is because he is a refugee. He is Slavic, half Russian, half Ukrainian, family on both sides. He is an entrepreneur with business ventures, not only in the States, but in Ukraine, in Russia. He has connections through millionaires and billionaires across the world, especially in the Slavic nations. And he left Ukraine just days before. He was living there for a while, long story, but he left Ukraine just days before. Isn't that right? And you have been ferocious on social media, really just cutting it right down the middle, not dealing with the ridiculous crap on either side. So, Mike, I'm just glad that you're here on the show.
100%. Thank you for having me, Lucas. You're the best.
Just to cue this a little bit more for listeners. I want to know, what have you done? Your background, your refugee story, just to get a context of why you know what's going on. Why are you an expert on what's happening right now in Ukraine, besides just being an internet pundit?
Absolutely, brother. There's experts that are better than me, but I'm not far off. So I appreciate you saying that. I will chase that word down with honor.
Yeah.
The word expert. 1992, shortly after the Iron Curtain comes down, my parents are refugees from Russia. I'm a baby, like 2.5 years old. I don't remember it much, you know. Growing up in the States, I'm like 5 years old. I go to school and I'm like, why are these people speaking this weird language? It was English, I'm like, there's clearly no way out for me. Like, I clearly am here, and my parents are bringing me here every day, so I must learn this language, English, So, and that like mix of like, where am I? What am I doing? Blah, 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 has pretty much kind of driven my whole life.
Wow.
Whatever I've done. Yeah. In business, like in school, wherever I would take, go to university, whatever. I always felt pretty comfortable with providing things for people. And if I needed money for life, I would sell them, I felt comfortable doing that. That's probably some of the most comfortable things I feel like doing ever, and so, I mean, bro, bottom line, I'm a sales guy, like since 7 years old, selling hamsters in front of a 7-Eleven.
It's
For real.
awesome.
Like my youth pastor would make fun of me, say your training is in rodent sales in front of a 7-Eleven when you're 7 years old. So like maybe on my personality, that's a bit of a background, but on like more official history, we're Russian refugees. And I had a chance. I went into passive income from my dealership like about a few years ago. And I'm like, listen, what am I going to do? Am I going to sit around in the, like wherever I'm at, and just do whatever, or like keep working on crappy songs that I know aren't going to make it to the top 100 by myself. I need a team. I don't have a team,
Right.
What am I as like I grew, I thought you said something. My bad, Lucas.
Keep going.
Like whatever. So I took the passive income and I went to just go and live across the world. That's how we met in Dubai.
That's right.
When we met, a few years ago. Dubai, took a little time to study Italy a little bit, lived in Rome and Naples, in Berlin. I lived in Berlin for a little bit.
So before this point, you weren't really reconnecting with your Slavic roots.
Only those that were in the States. And I felt like there was something more. I felt like in my spirit, because we're all busy. You got your roots baker you're building, business, you're an entrepreneur, you've got kids, you got a wife, like you're busy, we're all busy, so to speak. But man, dude, like I felt like, dude, there's something pulling me, like there's something else that I'm missing. And I just want to feel it, like I want to see it.
Yeah.
And a couple relatives of mine from Seattle, some entrepreneurs as well. They, I would say their name. I just such a weird political time right now, like saying people's names during wartime. It's
like, don't worry about it.
Write me about it. DM me or something. I'll tell you who they are. And
dox them.
Svetlana and Pavel. Yeah, they were. I won't say their last name, but they were. They were a huge blessing to a group of us, and they gave us like the confidence because they funded an organization that took a bunch of Slavic kids that were raised here and then took them into the Slavic world over there. After I got a taste of that, that's right after I flew to Dubai, met you. Then I went to Ukraine, sang on a tour with a buddy of mine from Atlanta here, but he's from Ukraine. They're trying to get like 30 of his family members out, refugees right now. Whatever, did the whole thing, try to get as much of the world in me as possible, study like international relations while I'm actually there. Like, oh, I didn't know that it's illegal to say, hey, Hitler in Germany. I didn't know that it's illegal to not wear a swastika in Germany. Like, I mean, it's clear, it makes sense, but I just didn't know stuff like that. And I wanted to, because that's what's going to happen in Russia, in my opinion.
I'm going to pause you on this because there's so often I have to look, like when I'm producing for a show, I have to look up that stuff too. I think a lot of people feel when I discuss with a lot of people, they feel like they're stupid, they feel like they're dumb, they feel like they're uneducated, and then they get embarrassed to ask questions and they put themselves down. People always say to me, "Oh, you're just so smart, you're way smarter than I am." All this stuff. I'm like, well, all I did was read and research, just like you. You didn't know these things about Europe or Slavics, even though those were your roots. You had to figure that out. And I just want to bring that up because it's important that we ask questions and realize that most other adults in the world probably don't know, the countries that comprise NATO. They don't know, what is NATO?
They don't know that there's about 30 of them.
What is NATO?
Know that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
And to be honest, bro, like I knew you hear it, but when it's wartime, that's when you really start researching it. And I was like starting to research and read all the countries. I'm like, okay, how many countries are in here? Which ones? They're all surrounding Ukraine, by the way. This whole thing about Russia trying to be afraid that Ukraine's going to be in NATO. And I don't know, man. Keep me on a leash, bro, if I'm speaking too much on the Russian culture, bro, for real.
No, this is good because this is where when we think of people just don't know. I like to play my Slav card. I'm half Polish, Skrobatsky. I love to pull on my Slavic heritage. I don't know it though. But when we're looking at this conflict, this current conflict between Russia and Ukraine, and it seems like it's really Russia and NATO, it's very confusing. What are some of these underlying Eastern European Slavic history that we don't understand? I myself, and I think a lot of other people think of Russia and Russians as part of Europe, not necessarily, this other people group over in Asia. How can you just open up and break down in a simple way what is the Slavic contextual history, and why is there so much tension that's now boiling over?
Well, I can go a few ways with this, and I would like to. So just just interrupt me when you're ready. You know what I mean? But we clearly know that there is a man at the throne in Russia. The world does know that. That's a fact. Everyone can agree with that there is somebody in media that's showing his face. Okay. We know that this man, I mean, let me just say this, man. Have you ever heard about the Napoleon Complex?
Yeah. Explain it.
In people. Okay.
What's the Napoleon Complex?
Napoleon Complex. I'm a dude that's 5'10". When I'm around guys that are 6'5", I feel inferior. Inferior, right? Is that the right word?
Yeah.
Inferior. I feel smaller. Guys that are 5'4" or 5'7" feel even smaller. And when they have 5,000 nuclear bombs, then they're probably going to be a little more prone to be a little more jabby. In this case, World War III.
It's like the guy who is small and then buys a massive truck because he's trying to compensate for something. Yeah.
Come on now, somebody.
We got it. Okay, so there's a hypothetical ruler of a nation called Russia. Putin is his name.
Hypothetically.
But how does that play into the tensions among Slavic people? Like, what is the history that is boiling over right now?
Yeah. And by the way, I really appreciate you being really careful with the lag, because we're in different countries and I notice a lag, and you're being really patient with how we space the sentences. So props to you on that. Back to your question, brother. Slavic nations, there's a lot of them, right? There's dozens of them, right? Or heritages, languages, stuff like that. And one of the two closest and most kind of that rub shoulders, so to speak, are Russia and Ukraine. Now, I was talking to the people on the ground mostly. I hung a little bit with some like an oligarch or two, like whatever, heard about their stories of how they're buying 200,000 euros worth of red wine so their girlfriend can bathe in it, like whatever, cool, interesting. I get it, but like I don't know how that applies to what I'm doing. You know what I mean? And people on the ground in Ukraine, like pastors, 9 to 5, business owners, entrepreneurs, guys that aren't part of the 0.01%. You know what I mean? They are proud that they can go out in public in Ukraine and say that, hey, in case they have a bad president, they know that they won't be shot or arrested or beat on the street for saying that. That's when I was there. That's the vibe I got off of everybody.
So every commenter, every commenter, every normal, run of the mill person who's not the ruling elite are just glad that they have the freedom to disagree with their government.
honestly, even the ruling elite, I mean, yeah, we're walking around like, in their group, like there's bodyguards or whatever. They got a button for like emergency services that like some crazy team comes in to scoop them out and something goes down, But like, they're good. They're good. They don't feel weird. Maybe one seems a little cocky. Maybe somebody seems a little poor. But they're all pretty balanced out as humans, I would say.
Right.
When you talk to people about that have like, especially like, I talked to a pastor that I stayed at. They actually invited me to come stay. I had a couple surgeries in Ukraine, and they invited me to come recover at their house and like serve at their church, and it was such a pleasure. And the pastor, in his just like calm tone, just full patience mode, he's like, man, we know that people are suppressed over there. There's the freedom of speech is just not there. We would rather be poor and have freedoms than be probably still poor and have to look up to some dude that's a tyrant that the whole world looks at like, what's going on,
All right.
So they're really kind of fighting for that between these two. I mean, I've had so many conversations with Ukrainians, Russians, relatives. I was born in the USSR, but now it's the territory of Russia. That's dangerous. That's actually a little bit dangerous to say on a podcast like this to some Ukrainians. Like I'm on a VPN every day. I'm looking just left and right, just in case, especially if I go back anywhere in Russia or Ukraine again, which I will,
Why is that? But why would that be? Why is that dangerous to say that you were born in the USSR and now it's Russia? How is that? Why is that controversial?
Well, simply because I was raised, which a lot of people in Ukraine, millions of people, and there's 40 million people in Ukraine. A few million of them pretty much fundamentally speak Russian.
Right.
So it's kind of dangerous for them a little bit in that sense, because if somebody's rubbed the wrong way with the Russian language, the patriotism, it could really get you. It could really snap you. You can get into a fight on the street over that.
And was that before? Was that before this war even started? That there was already bad blood between Ukrainians and Russians, or is it now, since the war started, there's a lot of tensions between Ukrainians and Russians taking sides?
There were tensions because of the annexation of Crimea, but it wasn't like crazy. Now it's better if you just speak Ukrainian in Ukraine right now, because it's like, yo, is he a spy? Is he a what? My dad was born in Ukraine, in Donbass, where we bombed everything in 2014 or, whatnot. And, I just have to be careful because I know that I'm acting out of good faith. And so I just have to look out for my well-being in a sense and help as many people as possible, send as much money as possible, communicate as much as possible, just be a shoulder if someone needs it, and build businesses in the state that are going to affect not just Ukraine, but then the rest of the world, because there's some really talented engineers that I've met there. There's some really talented people there. And they're all going to work for $500 a month to build some of the greatest companies in the world soon. Right now. So if you're like an entrepreneur, let's chat or go chat. Go do your own work. Because if you're trying to build,
So I guess, when we bring it back to the current conflict, right, you sound like, even though you are born in Russia, Russian by blood, speak Russian, not originally Ukrainian, you seem to be pretty anti-Putin. But right now, there are a lot of people who I see who are in one of two stance. One, they are either kind of anti-globalist, NATO, maybe dabbling a little bit in, biolab theory, and Putin is actually, just a misrepresented good guy by the leftist CNN, MSNBC media, and he's actually the the resurrection of Donald Trump, and he's going in and he's emptying the swamp of deep state politician neo-Nazis in Ukraine, and we should just let that be because their argument is actually this is a good thing because it's going against the globalist alphabet agenda. But you don't seem to be of that thought.
No, not at all. Because when I am in really tough moments in my life, right? First thing that I'm asking for this life is wisdom, 100%. I'm not asking for a specific interpretation of what any president is saying. I'm asking for wisdom because I want to understand what that person is saying, what they're doing, how they're acting, what they're doing in their actions, how they're matching up with their words, what their body language is, what are they eating, what are they, what do they look like, how much makeup is on them, stuff like this, like whatever that I want logically to think of whether I should trust this person or not. And I 100% put my life on it. Do not trust this guy for a second. Do I trust Lucas Skrobot, who runs his podcast? 100%. Do I trust this man that's got a ton of bombs for the world, by the way? And he's saying some things that I've researched very thoroughly. And I've seen my neighborhood where I was restoring from brain surgery and a mechanical surgery. I've seen an apartment building, my dream penthouse that I wanted to have, that I was like, you know what? Usually I give money everywhere else. This time I'll just rent a penthouse for 3 months on a sky level view above Kiev. Rockets and missiles through it, brother. You know what I mean? The house where I was being restored in, like physically with the pastors, dead bodies on the street, walks away, dozens of meters away, which is 100 feet away. 200, 300, 400, 500, everything, dead body, tanks, burned down tanks, Z's on them. I'm talking about so I know what's happening on the ground. I've been with the elite in Ukraine personally. I'm talking about the people with the most money, handshake away from the president, Zelensky, because he was an actor before. I'm on a flight from Atlanta. Thank God there's this guy that hit me up on top of our government calling me. From the federal level, they called people that submitted, in their information online, and they call us personally after all the news and the tensions. I had friends, like, yo, get out, and I'm like, I was timing the surgery because I was like, all right, blah blah blah, and this guy comes into my life that I knew, like, so he used to work with the president, but when the Zelensky was an actor, he used to work with them, with their businesses and stuff. They would hire him out. And, he's shown me photos on the plane of Zelensky, like the president, like his confidential stuff that they can't release now,
right.
But they have NDAs on. But I see it visually. I'm like, dude, I've been with the elite. I've been with the broken and the poor. And not one person is a Nazi. Not one person is, they're normal people. They're just like the people in the United States, just like the people I saw in Dubai, just like you and me, everything. But there is a perversion mentally from whoever the aggressor is. I don't care what his name is. I don't care what swastika they have. I don't care. There is a perversion.
Okay,
it's 100%. I put my life on it.
All right. So I understand that. And then where I also, the arguments also are coming in, and I've seen you deal with this. And so I'm asking you, it seems as though the world is going to be pulled into World War III. It seems as though NATO increasingly is getting involved. It seems as though Zelensky, who a lot of people criticize as being, continuing being an actor hired by the globalist elite to push forward a globalist elitist agenda, and that it's just a stage and a show to pull the world into World War III. And that's kind of the stuff that people say. I don't know Zelensky. I have zero idea. But those are the arguments that people are making. They show that video back when in 96 or whatever, when he was a dancer, and people say, oh, look, Zelensky's not a great guy. It seems to me, I guess my point is, it seems to me that this whole thing is just propaganda on both sides. That there's propaganda all the way through. And,
That's a fair point.
I'm curious because if NATO is pulled into this, what are the effects? And it seems like there's just all this geopolitical nonsense that's going on that I'm not smart enough to understand. But what you're saying is, okay, yeah, that's great, but people are dying on the ground. And you're calling for peace. But my question is, how can you have peace if the only way that you can have peace is by throwing the world into World War III? Because this leader of the nation of Russia, you're saying has an inferiority complex, and if he's going to lose, he's going to start. A lot of people worry that he might start using biological, chemical, or nuclear weapons.
Oh man, right now, brother, when I look at our government in the United States, which is the largest threat to the federation that's being the aggressor right now, are the government here in the USA. I'm praying for the people that are the advisors to a sleepy president. I'm praying for the people that have influence there and have honor for life and understand the sacredness of life and death and how very, very scary it is to come close to death, which I would know personally. Once you are in that position, even when you're fighting somebody, which you might have to in life, you might have to fight somebody, but you want to be the guy that still has love for that person after the fight, even if you win, even if you lose. You want to be that guy. That's a good man. That's a good dude. Are you asking me specifically what would happen if a World War III, or what the consequences might be, what's happening, or if it'll happen, or stuff like this?
Yeah, it's a great question.
What do you think?
I think really what I'm getting at is that it seems like this is a lose-lose situation. It seems that Russia invading, how does this, obviously we're getting too deep into geopolitical stuff, but how does that de-escalate?
It's okay.
How does that de-escalate? NATO gets pulled in, it just continues to grow. And who's paying the cost of that? Who's the people who are actually suffering from that? And you talked about just now how you need to have love in your heart for your enemy. How you need to have, at the end of the day, you need to have love in your heart for your enemy. Otherwise, you're just as evil and corrupt as them. But you've been trying to toe the line on social media and trying to split the center of saying, hey, I love Russia. I love my Russian roots. I love Ukraine. I love my, Ukrainian relationships and family. And you're trying to say, okay, geopolitical stuff aside, here's the people who are suffering. Is that right?
Yeah. 100%. 100%. I even started a nonprofit, got a bunch of donations already. And the motto straight up across the board is decrease suffering. Wherever the next conflict is, decrease suffering. Wherever the next issue is, decrease. If it's in your life, decrease suffering. let's figure it out. Balance this thing out. Let's go. Because can I tell you something about getting hit by this car in Kiev 4 months ago?
Yeah. Tell us.
Can I tell you something?
What happened?
I blacked out for a very. I'm not going to tell you. I don't need to say much, I don't think, to get the point across. But I thought I was depressed. I thought I had suicidal thoughts before. I thought that I did. But when I blacked out for the longest time in my entire life and woke up with a massive hematoma in my head and a shattered skull, shattered jaw, shattered collarbone, with two dudes trying to take me away from the ambulance that hit me, then later hid the car away from the police, have arrest records on their name. This war is kind of saving their butt, honestly. I'm so happy that I have a chance to sit here and talk to you on this podcast about something going on in the world, including, let's be real, you got some amazing hair. Okay. Let's be real here. But there are, I can't believe I just said that. There's massive problems going on in the world, regardless. I'm just attached to this. That's why I'm able to speak out, maybe a lot or toe a line or this and that. But you want to be able to the blackout when there's nothing there and you can't feel God anymore. Whatever it was for me, I couldn't feel anything. It was just zero. I was reduced to zero because I was nothing. I was not conscious. I was not blah, blah, blah. And then my body starts coming back. And that's when my respect for the creator goes up 100-fold, 1,000,000-fold. And that's when I realized, I said, listen, if we are to die now, what's the value in it? What's the value of this death? And so now through that lens, I'm judging what's the value of how this potential World War III is starting? What's the value here? How valuable is it? Does it look valuable on both sides? Most people want this thing to not want to talk about it. We would rather talk about how Dubai is building the next amazing building, how whatever is happening somewhere else, and all this. And here we are looking at this stuff, and it starts to get kind of. It's not. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I do know what you mean.
Yeah.
It's that we don't. It's hard for us. I think we're finally getting to the core of this here. It's hard for us to look at death and suffering.
Yeah. 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 And it's natural. And I don't that there's some people that are in media, in government, that maybe have lost people. We all have lost something. It's not fun. Now imagine that being someone you love or yourself. Then you start looking at it through a different lens. You say, what's the value? And yeah, everything's relative. There's some dude in a bunker in the Russian Federation sitting, and this is valuable to him. If we would not be people to change people's minds, then what kind of people would we be? So we are here to affect change, yeah. And we're either going to do it. We're going to do it for better or for worse. So that's where our logic steps in. That's where the understanding steps in that we have to use. And we have to say, okay, so what are we going to do? What are we going to say? And yeah, some of it, maybe we came off controversial. We're sorry. If you're offended, sorry. But if somebody's offended, I apologize. And if they're still aggressing, I leave. I go and be changed somewhere else. Like there's no point in staying and fighting for something that's not valuable. What's the point in fighting for it if it's not insanely, excellently valuable? How valuable is this? Explain it to me. You can't, because it's hard to explain. And only one guy tries to do it in this world, and he's not doing that great of a job. He's got stutter steps in his speech. He's got hands that he can't keep together. He's got this going on. He's got 25 women around him like a sheik. Bro, you're not in the UAE. You're in Russia. You were praying with the Catholic Church. We believe in marriage there. One to one. We don't believe in 17 women in a room with you. No other men. What's the point of that? Another flex, another part of your pride that we're saying. Got it. How special is that? You know? So the Ukrainian on the other side. Okay, let's take some shots, you know? Be more passionate. I want to see some tears. I cried from the States on Instagram and felt like a weak man. I want to see some emotion from you. If you're really who you say you are, you know? So I'm passionate obviously about the subject, bro, because I'm in love with the culture and I'm in love with life. So in love with it. And I wasn't for 30 years probably. I don't know, whatever, give or take. I was a happy kid. My parents were awesome, you know? But for a long time, I didn't have an insane love for life. And I really appreciate that right now. And I want to see that, especially from leaders. And I expect it from myself.
Mm.
And yeah, not everybody needs to come close to death. Sure. No. But should we sit and maybe agree? And maybe show things in our media that we put out, like we are putting out with you, like you're putting out? Should we show something that's really to the core and exposes so we know what the root system looks like? Because what if you're really that big, why are you scared?
Right.
You know?
So
Yeah.
I've been in the previous couple episodes talking about not coming into agreement with the spirit of war and really been thinking through the complexities of defending your homeland against war.
Oof.
And you know, you've sent over some just atrocious images
Oof.
of let's see if I can pull it up here. Just horrible images of what's happening there with the war, what's happening with people just being put into mass graves. Really just shocking images. You know, mass graves. We see images of cities being bombed out, just totally bombed out, flames. Apartment buildings just being totally, completely decimated.
Oh.
You know, you sent over videos of some of your friends walking into buildings that have been completely bombed out, showing the carnage.
That's a good friend of mine right there.
The carnage of war. Of this assault that has come on Ukraine, and there's, as you said, like, what's the value? Is it more valuable to preserve your life and not stand up to evil tyrants, to not stand up and just say, you know what, it's more valuable to just let these tanks roll in and set up a puppet government? Or is it more valuable to fight for your freedoms? Is it more valuable to stand and fight for what you believe in the midst of being bombed?
Yeah. Yeah.
What do you think? How do you you're talking about the passion and love of life, and you're talking about the importance of life.
Yeah.
How do you rectify those two things? How do you rectify okay, well, we're going to turn around and hate on Russia because they're being an aggressor. But you see the 18-year-old kids going to fight these wars who thought they're going on training operations.
Yeah. You know, I love what you said. Puppet government. These are like big, like strong, strong statements in a sense for any government.
And I guess
when we're out of balance, yeah.
Well, I guess, and then the act. It's funny. Both sides are accusing the same thing, because Russia is accusing the Zelensky to be a puppet organization for the West and NATO, and the West and NATO and Zelensky is accusing Putin of trying to come in and set up a puppet organization. And so it just seems like this is an impossible situation where no one can win. How do you then love your enemy? How do you then carry yourself rightly? Because you and I, I'm gonna affect geopolitical anything. We're not gonna make a dent, even if we know the most powerful people.
Don't say that quite yet, because literally the president of Ukraine might be watching this podcast. I'm not joking. Just based on me sending it to 3 people,
right,
that are near him, they might. Maybe later.
How do you win?
Anytime is good.
How do you win? How do you win in the face of the loss of life? How do you win in realizing that that the world is on thin ice of slipping into really the next world war? How do you win from that point as a governmental leader? How do you win as Zelensky? How do you de-escalate when you're balancing either giving up the freedoms that your country has to tyranny, or possibly losing tens of thousands of millions of lives in a coming world war?
Yeah. There have to be risk takers. Whoever that's going to be, God's going to praise them, and God's going to glorify those people. They are not always presidents. They're not always people that you expect, but then they show up after they've done what they've done, after they've meditated and let God do it through them, in a sense. I don't want to get too religious either, for people that are listening to this with their logical side, but you know what I'm talking about. And there have to be the Esther, like you and I, we grew up around, these figures in human history, like this girl Esther that went and risked her life to save her people. That's how you're going to do it. Don't make a dumb risk. Don't go play at the casino. You're going to lose, and even if you do win, you're going to be annoyed, because you had to put so much effort into it. For what? For paper? For like money that you could have made somewhere else and been happier? Okay. So take the risks, but analyze how you're going to do it, and let the spirit that's in you, that's holy, do it. Take those risks, and that's how, because there's no other way. It's like when you're hungry, there's no other way to eat but to go and find food. It doesn't just come to us. And if it does, we get fat and lazy and we get unhappy and all this stuff. We got to take the risk. We got to get up from the chair. We got to be done with whatever we were doing. We got to go find the fruit. We got to go make sure it's clean. It doesn't have bacteria on it. We're always taking risks. So we got to calculate these things that are on a major level, especially on a world level, and that's why I'm blowing the horn. I've done things on my Instagram that I wouldn't have even imagined doing, or said things, but I thought it through, and I said, I want to draw as much attention to this as possible. even if it looks like it's coming from a back around, some way that even I would never say in a church or at a front, into a microphone.
Yeah.
On a stage. You know what I mean? So I'm like, this is my stage that I really want the real ones to just get and be like, okay, it's really going down for real. There's absolutely no room for error, because there's going to be error. Even when we're risking, there's going to be error. But we need to make sure that we minimize it to the point where we feel good about the error that's coming. Because most of the time we don't.
Yeah, as you're talking, I've been thinking about multiple stories from World War II about Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, and how he was in a concentration camp and he was stripped of everything, and he realized the depravity of his humanity, and how he had to find purpose outside of all of his accolades or his titles or his clothes or what he did or his past life. He had to find purpose, and he had to take risk. And it was in the midst of that suffering that he figured out how to live. You think of all these stories of World War II, of Schindler, and how he, took risk to save thousands of Jews from the gas chamber, quite literally, because he was a businessman. I think of, I forgot the gentleman's name, but he took risks to smuggle hundreds of children out from Germany to the UK. Never told anyone about it until he's old and gray, and his wife or his niece or something finds in the attic all these records of how many people that he saved, and they pulled him and the generations that he saved into a room, and they called him up and they said, these are all people that are alive because you took a risk, because you stood up and you did something. This is what we talk about on the show, about owning the future, about standing up and taking a risk that could actually cost you something. Not just for your own self-centered purpose, but to serve someone else. I want to transition to, if people are been following this, they want to know how and where to give. They see the human cost of the Ukrainian citizens who are the one who's paying the price for this war. Whoever started it, for whatever reasons, it doesn't matter. What matters is who is truly and ultimately paying the price and the cost. Can you tell us how people can give to this project? How can people give through, whether it's through your NGO or whatever it's through? How can we tangibly make an impact?
Absolutely. Most of the people in the world are not extremely wealthy. So if you can give $1, that's perfect. If you can give 5, that's perfect. If you can give 10, that's perfect. If you can give 1,000, that's perfect. If you can give 1,000,000, that's perfect. And if you can't give, obviously pray, and
what initiatives do you have going on right now there that people can tangibly pour into?
So the photos that you're showing here, these are of orphans. These are babies that were evacuated from an orphanage that was bombed. They were trapped in a basement. And my good friends, Ivan Vilkov with the Orphan Foundation. The link is in my Instagram bio, at Mike Nova Music. Yeah, there. Oh yeah, you have it tagged. Thank you so much, Lucas. If you want to give there, do it. If you feel comfortable giving somewhere else, I'm not fighting charity versus charity. Just make sure that you feel comfortable doing it. And the amount is comfortable for you too. You know what I mean? Don't overextend
Overextend yourself.
Do what's on your heart. Yeah.
Don't give out of guilt,
Yeah.
but give generously and yeah, give generously.
Yeah, yeah. And for some people it's $1, and for some people it's 3,000, for some people it's 1,000,000. And guess what? It's gonna evaporate like this, because each one of those bombs that you see exploding, that's 50 million that's just down the drain. 50 million bucks, 50 million bucks. How many bombs were launched already? Rockets, almost 1,000, just rockets. You know? So there's yeah, give out of the goodness of your heart. Don't give to feel guilty later. If you're gonna give, do it. And if you find a charity that you can trust, do it. These orphans, man. Oh man, dude, I have, like, especially out of this position that I'm seeing, like, it's these kids are so cute, man. These blue eyes, these little baby faces. Like, I'm just like, yo, I'm not a father, but I'm about to be, like, trying to adopt one of these kids. You know what I mean? But
So this is
man,
the guy right here. This is Ivan. Is that right? He's the one that is going in and saving these orphans, moving them to safe shelters, safe houses, pulling them out of basements, arranging transport, getting them to safety.
amazing people. Again, 10 years ago, I met Ivan the son. That's Ivan the father, senior and junior. And he is out there, like, literally, however old, I think he's 70. And he's literally out there, just plowing through evil, like, straight up. And because he's connected spiritually to the country. That's his homeland. These people have been doing this for 10 years before any annexation of Crimea. These are the Vilkavoids. They're from Portland, Oregon. And like, shout out wise, yeah. Or if it's linking in my bio, DM me or something if you have questions about them. But they are amazing people, and I've done business. They're great in money. They're funding a lot of the stuff themselves, like, to the point where they're stressed, like, and the kind of stress that they hopefully can take on, I think. But I'm supposed to meet him today, actually, here in the U.S. The junior, not senior. So I kind of plugged his name there a couple of times. I just want to make him feel special. I'll take a snippet out of this, saying their names and you showing that, and they're probably gonna cry, though. But it's special. And love, we have to do it in love. If somebody's not ready to give, if somebody's not ready to converse, to have a conversation, to do that, we should leave them alone. We should let them be, because let them deal with what they've got going on. Show them love that way. Give them peace. Give them space. Some people aren't ready to be talking about this. You know what I mean? Some people are. And we again, just like we take risks in a conversation, like you and me are taking risks today, just being on this podcast. We calculate that and we say, all right, I think God's going to bless this. I think this is not my ego or whatnot. And we move that way and everything. So, I mean, yeah, I hope I answered, as far as the giving and charitable stuff. There's plenty of places. Vet them well. Make sure they have a long history, and make sure that they don't seem fake, like fake people or bad people.
Well, guys, this, as you all know, this is a value for value podcast. If you get value out of the show, we just ask that you give value back to the show in the measure that you took out of it. And today, if you give through the podcast, or if you go to the link that is in the bio to give directly through to this orphan organization that they're saving orphans. Either way that you give, if you make a note, if you're giving to the podcast through that, if you make a note of Ukraine, 100% of the proceeds is going to go to this project and this organization. Orphans and widows. It is what it's about. It is really doing the real work. I don't pitch this hard on a show, but this, guys, I believe in. If we can help a few people who are outside of whatever geopolitical nonsense is going on outside of whatever bombs are dropping and who's right and who's wrong. It's the citizens of Ukraine that are ultimately paying the price. And if we can do anything to help them, I would strongly encourage you to do that. Mike, as we wrap up today, you've said that, on your Instagram bio, you have both the Russian and Ukrainian flag, and you're saying that a lot of people are getting mad that you have both flags. But everything that we've talked about today, it really seems like you're one-sided. So why do you even have both flags in your bio, and why are people on both sides getting upset at you?
It maybe feels like both sides. Really, it's just a couple people are very patriotic to Ukraine and are straight up racist against Russians. Straight up, and it hurts because I'm close to them. I'm close to very close to people legally, and I'm one-sided for the fact that this is all going to change. This is all going to go away. You know what I mean? And the people that hear the call and they hear the invite, and it's not just Ukraine, We don't have perfect governments today. We won't have them tomorrow. But the people that can recognize it and be the best that they can be in their countries across the world, because we're world people. I'm wearing a world shirt. I mean, I got the blue and yellow for Ukraine, but I'm a world person. That's it, I don't know how much more I have to say, man.
Yeah, I love what you were saying about, your near-death experience where you're crossing a crosswalk, you get hit by a car running a red light, blacked out, almost died. Before you're saying you're depressed, suicidal, not knowing if you want to live, and you have this near-death experience, and all of a sudden you realize that life is precious. It's worth risking things for. Mm-hmm. And you're right. This crisis, however long it takes, it's going to be out of the news cycle, and there's going to be another crisis somewhere else. But it takes us as people standing up and taking risks, not just to make our lives better, but to serve someone else and help them in their time of need.
Yeah. Serving can be really hard, I feel like, but it shouldn't be. So we have to figure out ways where serving isn't extremely hard for us, because we got interesting lives. We're not all heirs to Johnson & Johnson or some Fortune 500 company.
Right.
And even then, people, they themselves say, I wish I would have built it myself. Some of these kids, some of these rich kids, and I feel for them too. We have a calling. We feel the calling. And we have to, it's so hard to be honest to it, because our brain is saying, I want to bomb and kill. That's what our brain is saying. But our soul is saying something else. And so finding the balance, because we need our brains too. We can't just shut off,
How do you recognize the calling? Like, how do you recognize that?
When it gets so painful and you have the fear of real pain doing something that you feel is incorrect, it's maybe more feeding an ego or some idea that's more up in your head and not balanced with who you are, with who you're created to be, then that's your problem right there. You're too far in your head. I thought I was going to be like, I thought I wanted to be some pop star. And I got to taste it all, in a sense. You're on TV, cool. Let's go. Let's get it done. Let's do this. Let's do that. But at the end of the day, the balance wasn't there, and I was really pulling away from the sidewalk that's already there, and I'm climbing these crazy rocks. And guess what? I'm still gonna get all that stuff, and I'm still getting it today. But the way that it's the way that it's valued, the way that I'm using it. What is it doing? Is it hurting my brother? Is it hurting my family? You know, what am I doing? How am I balancing this stuff out? You know, am I able to serve easily? I'm serving right now. This is the most serving I've ever done in my life, and it's the easiest it's been for me. You know, and we all have that somewhere, somehow. And we do need to find it. We have to find it. We have to take that risk and say, I got to find it. I got to figure it out. I got to do it because it's there. If I have to engineer it, it's good. You know, if I have to ask for it, it's good, you know? But yeah, man, you know?
And you were saying that we all want to bomb people. What happens
Our brains want to.
What happens when we find ourselves starting down that road in our calling and our brain starts veering us off envy, jealousy, hatred, and becoming the very thing that we're fighting against? How do you, in the midst of you wanting to bomb specific nations or a specific nation right now, or someone who's leading to all this catastrophe and heartbreak and tragedy and war, how do you keep from becoming that thing that you hate?
I know that what we feel is good, and I can trust that. Going out into the world, I can trust myself because I know that deep down inside it's good. And so when I start thinking too much about, okay, this is what I'm going to do, it starts to feel bad. I don't like to feel bad, you know? And I got to reel it back a little bit. Forget about the money. I'm a guy that grew up, you know, whatever, welfare, blah, blah, blah stuff. It wasn't bad. My mom and dad did amazing, you know? But the money was a target for me for a while. I thought about it enough, or I would suffer enough just to save it up, you know? And I realized that, hey, there's some things, and there's so many different ways that are beyond me that people in my life know about that I don't. You know, let me tell you what the richest man in the world says, Elon Musk. Can I tell you something what he says?
Tell me.
He says, we are launching rockets into space. It's some of the most intense engineering humans have ever done. And he says, before every launch, we look at that rocket standing there with the whole team, and we say, to some degree, we're wrong. That's not happening with some leaders right now. Some people think they're 100% right.
Humility.
And to some degree, we're always wrong. We're always wrong to some degree. And we have to consider that and still go and do good. But don't forget, to some degree, we're always wrong. A little bit at least. And that's enough to be humble.
That is a good word.
My man.
Mikhail, Mike, thank you so much for being on the show. People can find you at Instagram at Mike Nova Music. And links is all over in the show notes to be able to give to this to the NGO, to your nonprofit, to be able to help the work in Ukraine with these orphans, saving people and feeding food or giving food to orphans. Right now, if you check out the Instagram, there's posts, links all over the place. And as we close, I just want to say, thank you for being on the show. Thank you for fighting, probably in wrestling in your own heart, to find that middle ground, and for taking action, not just being a pundit on everything that's happening when it comes to Ukraine and Russia right now, but you've moved beyond just being a pundit, and you're taking action to actually build a better future for people right now. for these orphans right now. So that's commendable and an example to us all.
Yeah. It's never going to stop. The tensions in our lives. I'm not talking about this war. I'm talking about tensions in our lives somehow, right? So I don't want to preach too much. I'm sorry, man.
No,
but
preach.
If we know that what we believe in is right and it's good, we're going to have the easiest time, and it's going to fly by like this, and it's going to be a miracle what we're feeling and what we're doing. And it is a miracle right now in a lot of people's lives, and it should be more of those kinds of people, you know? And we invite them. We invite them to be like us. We invite them because it's an awesome experience. It's a beautiful experience, and it's worthy. We invite them to be like us. You don't even have to meet us, you know? Just invite you to start thinking like that, doing like that, you know? You don't have to even give $1 sometimes. Yeah, we invite you to be like us, you know?
Now, when you say be like us, you're saying be like someone who doesn't just sit on the wayside, but someone who stands up and takes risks? Like, what do you mean by that?
You know, be like somebody that has such intense faith and passion and no fear. That's a really hard balance. That's a really hard bowl of ingredients. It sounds like a few ingredients. It's tough. So be like that, and you will feel so amazing in your life. You will feel so great, and you will do everything that you've ever wanted to do, and every single dream will come true. Mine have. Yeah.
It's great. We just talked about on a previous episode, don't shrink back. Don't shrink back.
Oh, yeah.
And in times like these, you know, us men, things just tend to want to shrivel up a little bit, you know, just kind of like pull back and shrivel. And
hey,
but it takes courage to stand in the face of fear, to stand in the face of, man, I might, you know, this might crash the global economy and I'll lose my job, and how I'm going to eat, and how I'm going to feed my family, how I'm going to feed my kids, what I'm going to do. But it's in what I hear you saying, it's in that we stand up and say, no, I'm going to live in spite of this fear. I'm going to go forth with courage and boldness. There might be destruction waiting for me in the streets, but I'm not going to hide in my house. I'm going to go forth out of my comfort, out of my self-preservation, to build something, to meet the dragon outside rather than waiting to come into my house to attack me and to devour me. And I think in these times, everyone has a dragon. Everyone has those things looming in our lives. I have things looming in my life that I'm well aware that I need to get out of my house and attack those in the streets, those dragons in my life, rather than seeking self-preservation and small-minded thinking, playing it small and playing it safe. So that resonates with me.
Yeah, that's amazing, Lucas. And you're awesome, man. You're so dedicated, bro. And watching you the last 4 years or such, right? Something like that.
Yeah.
Feels like that. You know, bro, you've been so committed to just value, you know, you've been so committed to your business you're building. It's so awesome. You know, great name too, Roots Bakery. Like, so cool. You know what I mean?
You heard it here first, kids.
Say what?
I said you heard it here first, kids.
Oh, shoot. Yeah, my bad.
No, that's great.
Can't talk about that. Yeah. You know, just amazing concepts, and, you know, you're a blessing, bro. You're a blessing. You know what I mean?
Thank you. Well, everyone, go follow Mike, give to his nonprofit, give to the work of helping orphans in Ukraine right now. And thank you for listening to this episode. Remember, you are a truth seeker, someone who goes out and pursues truth. And that means that you have to have that sliver of humility. You have to have that humility knowing that you might be wrong, because we are in the pursuit of truth. And it's through that we really are able to own our futures.